There once lived a young man named Arjun in a small, sunlit town by the river. He was smart, full of dreams, and always talking about how one day he would do something great, write a book, start a business, change his life. He often said, "I just need a little more time. I'll start tomorrow, tomorrow." That was Arjun's favorite word. When people asked him about his plans, he always smiled and said, "I'm preparing, I'll do it soon." He loved the idea of success, the applause, the recognition, the freedom, but he hated the part that required effort, discomfort, and consistency. So, every morning he made promises to himself. "I'll wake up early tomorrow. I'll start studying tomorrow. I'll change my life tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. The days passed quietly. Weeks turned into months. And every evening Arjun would look out of his window, watching the sunset, thinking, "I could have done so much today, but I'll start tomorrow for sure." At first, he didn't notice how quickly time was slipping away. But life noticed. One morning, his father came into his room. He looked at the piles of unfinished work, dusty books, and unused notebooks. He sighed and said, "Arjun, do you know what the most dangerous word in the world is?" Arjun looked up, confused. His father said softly, "Tomorrow." He continued, "Tomorrow has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. People don't lose because they try and fail. They lose because they never start." But Arjun just smiled and nodded politely. In his heart, he still believed he had time. Years passed. Arjun finished school, but barely. He planned to study for higher exams, but never did. He wanted to start a small business, but postponed it again and again. Every idea remained a thought, never an action. Meanwhile, his friends, the same ones who had the same dreams, started small, worked hard, and failed often. But they kept going, and soon they began to succeed. Arjun watched them with admiration and envy. He told himself, "They were just lucky. My time will come." But time wasn't waiting. One day, at a school reunion, Arjun saw his old friend, Rohan. Rohan had become a successful writer, the very dream Arjun had once shared. They sat together, and Rohan said kindly, "Remember when we talked about writing our first book together? What happened, Arjun?" Arjun smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, I remember. I just, didn't find the right time." Rohan nodded slowly. "The right time doesn't exist. You make it right by starting." Those words hit Arjun deeply. That night, he couldn't sleep. He looked at his empty desk, the blank notebook he had bought years ago, and whispered to himself, "Why didn't I just start?" Days turned into years again. Arjun found a job, not the one he loved, but the one that paid bills. He often told younger co-workers stories about his plans. They admired his ideas, but after a while, they realized he never acted on them. His life became a routine: wake up, go to work, come home, think about dreams, and tell himself, maybe next week. Then one evening, as he walked home, he passed by a bookstore. In the window, he saw a new book displayed, written by Rohan, his old friend. The title read, "Start Before You're Ready." Arjun stopped, staring at it for a long time. He went inside, picked up a copy, and on the first page, he saw a quote, "The cost of waiting is higher than the cost of trying." He smiled sadly. It felt like the words were written for him. He bought the book, went home, and finally opened that same dusty notebook. For the first time in years, he started to write. One page, just one, but it was something. That night, he slept with a strange mix of peace and regret. He realized that the pain of not starting was far worse than the fear of failing. And though he had lost many years, he still had today. He whispered to himself, "I can't change my yesterdays, but I can start today." But life, as always, had its own clock. Months later, Arjun fell ill. Nothing serious at first, just fatigue, they said, but it grew worse. The doctors diagnosed a late-stage illness that had been silently growing for years. He lay in his bed, weak but calm, with his half-finished book beside him. One evening, Rohan came to visit. He held Arjun's hand and said softly, "I read what you wrote. It's beautiful. Why didn't you start earlier?" Arjun smiled faintly. "I thought I had time." Tears filled Rohan's eyes. Arjun continued, "You were right, my friend. The right time never comes, only the time we have right now." He paused, breathing slowly. "Promise me one thing. Tell people not to wait like I did." Rohan nodded silently. A few months later, Arjun passed away peacefully. When Rohan published his next book, he dedicated it to his old friend. On the dedication page, he wrote, "To Arjun, who taught me the true price of procrastination. Don't wait for tomorrow. It may never come." Years later, a young student picked up that book in a library. He read those words and decided that very day to chase his dream, to act, to begin, to live now. And that's how Arjun's unfinished story saved countless others from leaving theirs unwritten. Moral of the story: procrastination doesn't feel dangerous because it hides behind comfort. It whispers, "You'll have time." But in truth, time slips quietly while we wait. The cost of waiting is regret. The reward of action is growth. You don't need the perfect moment. You just need to start. Because someday, that tomorrow you keep waiting for will never arrive.